Fox 28. Good Day Columbus starts now.
734 major changes coming to Wall Street today, the likes of which we haven't seen since the Great Depression and the resulting New Deal. President Obama will sign the Wall Street reform bill into law today, and local attorney David Meyer is joining us to explain how all these changes will protect us and our money. Great to see you, David. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Listen, this is a 2,000-page bill. It went fairly along party lines, but it can be very confusing and sort of been overshadowed in recent months by the healthcare reform bill. But troubled assets, derivatives, the foreclosure crisis, this really addresses all that and limits Wall Street ability to gamble with money. How so?
It does. I mean, it's hard sometimes to get excited about federal legislation, but this is a really big deal.
It is.
I mean, we now have a sheriff on Wall Street, the whole purpose of this big picture is to prevent another financial meltdown like we just saw. But this is the strongest consumer protection law ever passed in this country, and it gives real protection to individual investors and consumers.
Now, this watchdog group, David, that will oversee what banks are doing with our money, are they part of the Fed? Are they actually part of the government?
Well, it's going to be created by the Fed, but there's an independent watchdog called the Consumer Protection Bureau, first time ever. And the purpose of this bureau, this independent watchdog, is to design rules and laws to make sure that credit card loans, mortgage loans, car loans are now going to be clear and concise. Supposedly, we're not going to see any more of these pages and pages of small print that we don't understand, that's conflicting. That's supposed to be all gone. We'll wait to see how the implementation is. But, you know, that's a significant improvement. We're now going to have a consumer hotline, first ever 1-800 number, where you can call and complain about a problem with financial services, a loan, so the feds can get a hold of problems and try to deal with it.
Predatory lending, I know, was such a big issue as we applied for mortgages, and they handed these out like candy several years ago, which led to the foreclosure crisis. Folks were defaulting on their loans. Will this process be made easier for us as well?
This law will prohibit those unfair mortgage practices. Those no-doc loans, where folks were getting loans without any documents, those are prohibited.
They call those liar loans because no documentation of your income even.
Exactly. Now, and the commissions paid to mortgage brokers to pump those into the system are gone. So there's real reform to prohibit these deceptive and unfair business practices.
You know, opponents are calling this bill over-regulation, and all but a few Republicans are against this in Congress. Will some of these changes in this, we'll hear it referred to as the Dodd-Frank or Wall Street reform bill, will some of these changes affect business?
Well, I think that the real opposition to this bill has been Wall Street. I like to see who's against a bill to see really who it's going to affect. And Wall Street, it was reported, spent $1 million a day with their lobbyists to try to defeat this bill. So I think the only true opposition to this bill is Wall Street. And as an investment fraud lawyer, I want to see Wall Street oppose it, because that means it's good for investors and good for consumers.
We've just seen taxpayers bailing out all of these banks who are lobbying against Wall Street reform.
And now
this will change that as well.
No more too big to fail. No more taxpayer bailouts. Taxpayer bailouts, because going forward, if a company goes under this law, the obligation will fall to the shareholders and the creditors and no longer the taxpayers.
All right, some sweeping changes being passed. The Wall Street reform bill is going to be signed into law this afternoon by President Obama. Local attorney David Meyer explaining what it means for us and for our bank accounts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Amy.